Today's digital strategy showdown features two UPI apps, GPay and PhonePe. Why these two apps? Well, because they have between them 85% of the UPI payments market share. And so if you're going to unpack digital strategies, might as well pick the two biggest players in the UPI payments ecosystem. Typically, we start unpacking the digital variables and then reveal a winner in the end. Today, we will start by calling out who's winning the digital game and then talk about why that is the case and what is the reason they are winning the market share. The UPI payments market share as of January 2025 is clearly showing two apps in the forefront. PhonePe at about 48% market share and GPay at about 36, close to 37% market share. So like I said, between both of these apps, you have a market of about 85% cornered when it comes to UPI payments. If you look at the last 4 years, you will see that this 10 percentage point difference between PhonePe and GPay actually has been consistent. Since August 2021, PhonePe has maintained its lead, and this 10 points difference has been a consistent phenomena throughout. But what you may not know is that a year before 2021, around April 2020, the numbers were exactly the opposite. GPay was actually way ahead at about 44-45%, and PhonePe was actually at about 33-34%. How did this situation reverse in just 1 year? How did this shift happen? There are three variables, and you will be surprised that these three have actually nothing much to do with the way the interface looks or the nuances about the UI, but a lot more to do with the larger business and digital strategies that are being used. Variable one, let's talk about something called QR visibility. Essentially, which QR code is most visible when you visit stores to buy something? Out of every 10 stores you go to, about 7 or 8 QR code stands will be PhonePe branded. And this is across metro cities and the tier 2 and tier 3 cities. How did PhonePe achieve this level of QR deployment? Well, this all happened in the early days of UPI when PhonePe was kind of building its strategy. While they were focusing aggressively on onboarding merchants, especially those that were offline like Kirana stores, etc., GPay was focused more on peer-to-peer payments and was less focused on onboarding merchants. So as a result, most stores had a QR code stand that had a PhonePe brand on it. Well, you might ask, how does this make any difference? Because you can use any app to scan any QR code and make a payment. So why does this make any difference? Well, first, when you see the PhonePe logo everywhere, obviously it has a brand conditioning and brand imprint effect. So the more you see that brand, the more you feel like, okay, maybe I should try this app. Also remember, in the early days of UPI, most people didn't know that QR codes were interoperable. That means you could scan any code and use any app. People probably thought that if it's a PhonePe QR, I need the PhonePe app to actually make that payment. Especially in tier 2, tier 3 towns where people were not necessarily very savvy about the technicalities of how UPI works across apps and the interoperability of QR codes. Variable number 2, let's talk about loyalty. In the 1950s, there was a psychologist by the name of Skinner, and he used to do a lot of experiments on rats to study motivation and use those readings to ultimately understand how humans behave and what drives human motivation. Long story short, he noticed that rats were addicted to variable rewards. You know, if they had to press a button and get a food pellet, rats were more addicted to buttons that sometimes gave them a pellet and sometimes gave them nothing. So he used this to hypothesize that human beings love rewards when they are variable, when they are uncertain, where sometimes you can get something big and sometimes nothing. And interestingly, GPay used this strategy and introduced scratch cards after every payment you make to mimic variable rewards and the dopamine release as their core strategy to build loyalty. While GPay was busy using variable reward to make users more loyal to them, PhonePe was focusing again on merchants. They were actually building reward programs for merchants, and they realized that if they made the merchant happy, the merchant would in turn promote the app to the consumer and say, "Sir, PhonePe use karo, offer milega." And so they realized that the merchant had a disproportionate impact on recommending a certain app to the consumer at the point of sale, and therefore their focus on the merchant actually paid off, even though they were not really using a scratch card or variable reward strategy in the beginning, though they did latch onto it later and everybody offers that now. Today, I think rewards in general don't have that much effect in creating more market share. I think become more of a hygiene, but in the initial days, this difference in focus and loyalty strategy made a huge impact in deciding who gains how much market share. Variable number 3, let's talk about breadth. Now, when I say breadth, I really mean breadth of offerings. If you look at PhonePe's homepage and you start scrolling down from the first fold onwards, you will notice that right at the first fold, they showcase a lot of financial offerings beyond just payments. So clearly they are saying, we are not just a payments app, we are your one app for all your financial needs. So you can get loans, you can do savings, you can even do online shopping for things like travel, etc. And many other offerings that clearly put it in a different league when it comes to UPI apps. If you look at GPay's homepage scroll across the 3 scrolls, it's clearly a payments focused app. At the very end of the homepage scroll, you will see a little bit of financial offering around loans, personal loans or gold loans, and that's pretty much it. So it feels like they're doing that as a formality and not really interested in positioning themselves anything beyond just the payments app. So I think this difference also contributes to PhonePe's ability to garner a much larger market share and go beyond just being something that people use for making small payments. Key takeaways from this digital showdown. 1, I think even if you're designing a digital product, don't forget the physical aspect. As we saw in this case, while GPay was so app focused, PhonePe realized that the small, simple and humble QR code stand actually has a disproportionate impact and influence on building habits with people and also ensuring that merchants become the key influencers. If you think in ecosystems, then you can't just focus on one set of users. You have to look at other people who might be playing a big role. And finally, don't just design for India, design for Bharat, because the real volumes and the ability to gain market leadership is coming from the smaller tier 2 and tier 3 cities. See you next time on Digital Strategy Showdown.